It's good to be here. Everybody all right? Okay. I think before I get started, there's one thing I'm going to do. If you don't mind, I'm going to make one assumption. Okay, is that all right? And here's the assumption. I'm going to assume that everybody in this room is just like me. Ever since I was a little bitty boy, 4 or 5 years old, somewhere in that area, I had this unbelievable, deep desire down inside my gut that someday, somehow, I was going to grow up to sell life insurance full-time for commission only. Isn't that everybody? You know that actually the thought of insurance, I almost would turn my stomach at the time. I grew up with an insurance family. My dad, he moved our family in 1960 of 10 kids from La Crosse, Wisconsin to Waterloo, Iowa. 10 kids, all boys, with the exception of 7. To go to work for a company in Cedar Rapids, Iowa called Life Investors, which nobody had ever heard of. He was agent number 11. See, Dad never talked to me about coming into the life insurance business. He always talked to my older brother Frank, got him in right away, talked to my younger brother, tried to get him in, but he never talked to me because I was kind of a screw-off. I went to the University of Northern Iowa, went there for parts of 7 years, never did graduate. I majored in baseball and fun. And I was a hell of a lot better at fun than I was at baseball. I got out of school and worked for Pizza Hut for 7 years, where I went from a 160-pound pizza maker to a 220-pound area manager. I had the opportunity to go into my own operation down in San Juan, Puerto Rico, with 2 other guys. One guy had the franchise rights to the island. Another guy had the money. I had the ability to run the stores. We flew down to San Juan in April of 1972. All right, and I got down there. We're already assigned for a new location, and they can't find me. I bailed out, and I'm back at the airport. I want to go home. I'm not going down there. I can't speak the language. Don't know anybody. I'm a small town boy. So I say, hey, I'm not going to do this. So I fly back to Chicago. At the time, I'm living in La Crosse, Wisconsin with Pizza Hut. So I'm driving back from Chicago to La Crosse, and I stop in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. I had a brother there that was a general agent. And my brother asked me that night did I want to go out on an appointment with him. He was going out to see a young couple. I had nothing else to do, so I went along with him. We get in this house, and we're in this house for about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. He writes 2 programs. Some of you older guys remember it, $10 a week. Remember how he used to sell $5 a week, $1 a day, $10 a week, whatever it was. 2 programs, $10 a week on each of them, $40 a month. We get out in the car, and my brother says, what'd you think of that program? I said, man, that's a great program. I mean, I've actually got the same program. I've had it for 4 years. My dad showed up at my apartment one time with 2 slips of paper. I didn't know what either one of them was. One of them turned out to be something called an application. The other one turned out to be something called a check-o-matic card. He says, sign both of these, give me a check for $31. You're buying this, because if you can't save $1 a day, you might as well get on welfare right now, because you're not going to amount to anything anyhow. Now, here's what happened. 10 kids. That company, Life Investors, used to have these Apple Week clubs. You have Apple Week clubs at your companies. 1 Apple Week, 2 Apple Week, and all life insurance. 3 Apple Week and 5 Apple Week. Every time, my dad come close to falling off one of those contests, one of us kids got another damn policy. When I got married, I had 11 policies. Face amount would total up to $85,000. Okay? So it was a good policy. Then he says to me, how much do you think I made? Hey, Sean, can you get some more of these deals? How much do you think I made? Well, I know how much you made if you sold a pepperoni pizza, but I didn't know anything about life insurance and commission sales. All right, so he said he made about $500 on each one of those. I said, you got to be kidding me. We're in that house for an hour and 10 minutes. You help those people do what? Save money. What else? Protect their family. What else? All the things that you do with life insurance. And you made $500 on each one of those? I said, hell, I can do that. So he said, well, if you think you can, you ought to really go back to Waterloo, Iowa, which is where I went to school, and then I went to college in Cedar Falls. You ought to go back there and talk to Roman Kings, who was the general agent at the time, to take over for my father. So I go back and decided to do that. I go back and I talk to Roman. He says, well, you got to take this test. I said, well, what kind of a test? He said, you got to take this aptitude test. Okay, now I'm 25 years old. I'm making pizzas. I was making pizzas. I like to play baseball 2 or 3 nights a week. I like to drink beer, and I like to have fun. So how do you think I did on that test? I flunked it. But because my dad was very successful and my brother was somewhat successful, they said, okay, you can do it anyhow. We'll give you a trial. All right? And the rest, as I say, is history. That's how I got in the life insurance business. That is not how the life insurance business got inside of me. And there is a big difference. Are you in the life insurance business, or is the life insurance business inside of you? That's the question. Because, you know, when you're driving down the road, and you run, ma'am, look up here. Don't look at that pretty girl. I didn't even notice her come in. Who are you trying to kid? Okay, you're driving down the road, right? You come by this big building on the corner. Big building, it's got a steeple on the top of it. Outside of this building is a bunch of cars. The first one is a big black or white car. It's got the headlights on. It's got the flags in the front. And behind it is all these other cars with the headlights on. Can you picture what I'm talking about, ma'am? Yeah. Okay. They ain't practicing. Somebody's mother, father, child, neighbor, best friend is in that hearse, correct? And if we go to the funeral home the night before, who is the most important person in that funeral home to that family? The insurance agent. Why is that? Why is that? Huh? Because of what? We got the check. We got the money. The great Ben Feldman said what? The day you walk out, I walk in. And I got the money. You give me pennies, I'll give you dollars. How many do you want? Nobody else can do that but you and I as life insurance men and women. And that's incredibly important in what we do. Okay? In this business, I got to tell you something. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about what's going on in the industry. I hadn't been to a NAFA meeting for a while, but when I was on the National Membership Committee at one time, and 4 of those guys that walked across the stage was on that committee with me several years ago. They were presidents. But if you look at the membership of NAFA, you look at what's going on in the industry itself, there's never been a better time to come in this industry. But what's happening? What's happening to our industry? What's the average age of a life insurance man or woman? In 1983, it was what? Anybody know? 1983. 37 years old. Today, what is it? 57, and it's 58 or 59 in California and Florida. I mean, that's crazy. You know, if you look at of what's going on, the fact is that we have lost 20 to 25% of all life insurance agents in the last 10 to 15 years. And there's never been a better time to come into our business. But what's happening? If you look at This is a paper I pulled out. This goes back to 2008. And the statistics in here at that time stunned me. And it talks about how many life insurance policies are being sold. In 2002, there's a 14.7 million. 2 years later, it's 12.6. 2 years later, it's 10.9. Going like this. Going like this. Okay? Why, when the need has never been greater, why are the sales going down? Two reasons, in my opinion. First one we just talked about, correct? Which was what? There's less people. There's less people doing it. And the second reason is what? More important reason. The second reason is what? Well, that's the same thing we just talked about. We're not asking enough people. According to LIMRA, the average life insurance man or woman, how many appointments do you think they have in a week's time? Where they're asking somebody to buy life insurance? 3.9. 3.9 appointments a week where they're asking somebody to buy life insurance. You know, when I started in the business in 1972 in Waterloo, Iowa, there's a tractor factory up there. I don't remember the name of the tractors. They're these big green and yellow tractors. Okay? They had 16,000 employees. 16,000 employees. You know what they used to make their employees? I don't know how the hell they got away with this. You know what they used to make their employees do? They used to make their employees work 40 hours a week. Can you imagine that? Having somebody work 40 hours a week? But if you're seeing 3 or 4 appointments a week, are you really working? I can't imagine coming home on a Friday afternoon about 4 o'clock or so. When I wouldn't work. Let's say 11 o'clock. Came home on a Friday at 11 o'clock. I walk into the house and I walk up to my wife, Jan. I said, honey, I am absolutely exhausted. I saw 4 people this week. Isn't that what we're doing? You can't hardly go out and talk to people about life insurance and not sell something. If you look at the statistics, just look at the statistics, 30% of all households have how much life insurance? 30% of all households have how much? Nada. Not a thing. They don't have a thing. 68 million either have no life insurance or not enough life insurance. All right? That's incredible. 61% of adults had life insurance. 61% of adults have life insurance. 41 had individual life insurance, which means the other had it where? With their employer. And with most employers, or a lot of employers, if you have your insurance there and you leave, what happens? It's gone. It's gone. In a lot of cases, the people aren't able to get it again. They're not able to get it again. 66% of beneficiaries receive 3 times or less of an annual income as a death benefit. What are they going to live on? I mean, that's what we can do as life insurance men and women. Only 1 in 10 has 10 times. And what do economists tell us that they ought to have? 10 to 12 to 15. Okay, so it's obviously there. 44% of Americans say they know they need more life insurance. 29 million, according to LIMRA, say that they will buy more life insurance this year. But will they? No way. No way they'll buy it. Why? There's not enough of us out there to go see them, and those that are out there aren't asking enough people to buy life insurance. It's all, buying something else, some other kind of product. So the thing is, in my opinion, you got to be proud. You got to be proud to say you sell life insurance. You sell life insurance. Because nobody can do what we do. And you have to be extremely proud of that. I know I'm proud of that. You know, a guy said to me one time, you ever have this? A guy says to me one time, well, I can buy this policy from Metropolitan Life as a term policy for $10 a month, less than it would cost if I bought it with Life Investors. So why should I buy it from you? And I said, well, that's pretty simple. If you buy it from them, you don't get me. And I'm worth a lot more than $10 a month. Are you? Sure you are. Sure you are. So you've got to keep on that and make sure that you understand the importance of what we do. Okay. Now, as far as it comes to life insurance, I think we make life insurance somewhat complicated. It's really not all that complicated. The number one reason. Okay, you look like what's your name? Yeah, I didn't mean to have you. Tough question? Caesar. The number one reason that people buy life insurance is what? Because you ask them to buy. The number one reason that people buy the amount of insurance they buy is what? That's what you told them to buy. It's not rocket science. Okay? And the best kind of insurance to buy is what? It don't matter. It don't matter what it is. If it's term, if it's permanent, if it's universal, if it's upside down, the most important is whatever's enforced the day that guy becomes a hood ornament on a Mack truck. Okay? So there is no better kind. My dad used to always say this, sell them what they want. Make them what? A client. And once they're a client, you can always go back and sell them what they ought to have. Your number one objective in any interview is to what? Make that person a client so that you can take care of them for the rest of their life. And there's a lot of reasons that people like to buy term insurance. Okay? The number one reason people buy term insurance is what? It's cheap, right? But rollerblades are cheaper than cars, and there's nobody going down the interstate in rollerblades. Okay? But it's economical. People can afford it. Another reason that people buy term insurance, specific period of time, right? Specific period of time. It's convertible. Another good reason that people buy it. So there's all kinds of stuff that you can buy. Do you have the old kind or the new kind? The old kind is what? Okay. The new kind is what? Okay. A lot of times you can add living benefits to it now, a policy. Some companies have return of premium on their policies. You know, so anything that you can do to get in there and talk to them about what they're doing. But again, the biggest reason that people buy term insurance is because it's all that's all they believe in. Okay, I mean, there's nothing you're going to do to change that. Now, I want to tell you a little bit. When I first got started, that really helped me out. I used to have a guy, and some of you might know this name as a mentor. The guy's name was Norrie Keynes. He was with a company called Equitable of Iowa. And one of the things that Norrie said to me, because I used to go down to his office once a week, or once every 2 weeks, on Tuesday mornings, and he would talk about what I was doing. Okay, he taught me how to drink coffee, but he made me accountable for what I did. I had to show him what I was doing. So if you don't have a mentor in this business, find a mentor. If you know some young agent in your business, take them and you mentor them. But have fun in this business. I used to have a lot of fun, with my clients. I remember one time I'd go out, I had a client. I used to go out generally, the way I sold early on. I would go out and I would always sell on the man. That's the way we did it back then. And so then I would always go back on the second interview and I would talk to him and I want to sell insurance on who? The spouse. So I'd always say a question like this: do you have any insurance on your spouse? And they always did back in those days. That was a long time ago. How much do you think they used to have? Right there. He's going like this. 5 or 10,000, right? And that's the case a lot today, even. So I say, let me ask you a question. That 5,000 that you have, do you have that all with one company, or do you spread the risk out a little bit? Okay? Because you got to have fun in this business. A guy called me up one time. He wants me to come out and review his life insurance. Oh, you know what that always means, right? He wants to buy more, correct? No, he wants to drop the damn thing, and I know it. So I go out to see him. He lives right next to my brother. He's a real estate guy. So we kind of go through his stuff, and that's what he wants. He said, you know, I got $98,000. I think I got more than I need. I said, well, you know, you might. I said, you got 48 with me. You got 50 with the usually quiet company. So you got 98. You make $125,000 a year. I said, you know, I think you might be right, especially if you don't plan on being gone very long. If you can make people laugh, what do? They relax. And when people relax, they open their mind. So that's what we have to do, is to make sure that we can get those people to open their mind and get in there and do what they want. You know, if we look at the numbers out there today, 24% of people say they haven't bought life insurance, any life insurance, or they haven't bought more life insurance for one reason. You know what that reason is? Nobody's asked them. How many of your clients do you go back and see every year or every 2 years and talk about the need for life insurance? Most of us we're getting so busy trying to move up that ladder that we forget about Joe Lunchbucket and Susie Secretary are still out there. And Joe Lunchbucket and Susie Secretary really might not be Susie Secretary and Joe Lunchbucket anymore. They might be running the company. But the way some people take care of their clients, you know, nobody's ever going to do that. You know, and if you are not selling insurance to your clients, who is? Somebody is. Somebody is doing that, and you know they are. Okay? And the other thing is, I don't understand. I talk to people all the time that have gone, and there's probably some of you in here, that have gone from a very substantial life insurance business that you were selling to now, how much money can I get under management? And not taking care of this group over here that you were your first customers. I mean, I have people almost proudly say, well, they don't really sell life insurance anymore. I don't get it. I don't get why people would ask a client to pay 1%. 1%. Is it normal that you were going to make at least 1% on managed money? Was that right? 1% or more? Correct? Okay. And if a person is willing to pay 1% to have their money managed, why wouldn't they pay 1% to put that money in front of them? To protect their money, to protect their assets. Again, we just got to get out there and do more. I remember one time, I got to tell you this, it just popped into my mind. Before I was coming out here, my wife Jan, some of you know Jan, she said to me, I said to her, I said, honey, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think that someday I might be traveling around parts of the country, giving talks? You know, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think of that? She said, well, actually, John, you've actually never been in my wildest dreams. Okay. The question really comes in a little bit is, I like to say, is why can't agents be more like kids? What is one word that a kid never, ever hears? Huh? The word no. Kids don't hear that word. But life insurance men and women are what? They're afraid of that word. They take it personally. You know, and it's not a personal thing. Let me give you a couple of ideas on the questions that I used to use a lot in my practice that might fit you. One of the reasons I always give out this piece of paper, generally speaking, when I do a talk, just so that you got somewhere to write. And the other reason that I give out pens so that you got something to write with. And if you give somebody a gift, it's important to them. And I said, since 1986, I only write in green ink. It's a very positive sign. A lot of people say it stands for money, stands for go, but it's just an important piece. So if you didn't get a pen or a piece of paper when you leave, let me know. Here's some questions that I like to ask. And I think this can help you in a very simple matter. Some people have trouble talking to their friends and relatives. Anybody in here? Okay. Here's some very, very low-key questions that you can use in that. The first question is this. In fact, I've had people in seminars that I've done. I said, go down to your local grocery store this weekend and ask them if they would let you do a survey on life insurance. And this would be the perfect month to do that. Why? It's Life Insurance Awareness Month, and everybody knows it. So whether it's a car dealership or a grocery store or wherever, a church, when is the last time somebody asked you to review your life insurance? Is there anybody that's been in the business for less than a year that's in this room? Okay. How long you stand up, sir? How long you been in the business?
Not even started yet. I'm taking my test next week.
Okay. How old are you? 57. When was the last time that somebody asked you to review your life insurance? Never been asked. Believe me, folks, 90% of the people are going to say what he just said. Less than 10% will be in the last 10 years. Okay? And is that a threatening question? Not at all. Here's the follow-up to that question. The follow-up to that question. Would you have any objection if I called you sometime in the next few weeks to set up a time to stop by and visit with you and review your life insurance? Easy question? What were the two key words in what I just said here? No, the two keys were this. In the next few weeks. I'm not asking some of you could probably use the appointment tonight. All right? But you don't want them you want them to realize that you're a busy person. So you're going out a couple of weeks. And the second word was one of the most important words in our language. And that is the word what? I said in there. Visit. People don't want to set up an appointment, but people will visit with you. It's a very, very, again, non-threatening word. Right? So that's the first deal. Set up a time to stop by and visit with you sometime in the next weeks. Here's another question that you can use in an interview. Or you can use this any place. You know what I find about life insurance? I find that a lot of people have life insurance and they don't even know why they have it. They don't know why they got the kind they have. They don't know why they have the amount they have. So one of the things that we're going to do this evening is we're going to talk about what do you have and what it is that you want it to do. Does that make sense? Very non-threatening, would you agree? Very, very simple. Then you're sitting in the interview and you start with three, Denny, we used to play 500, throw the ball up and you hit it. These are three, throw the balls up and just smash it out of the park. Simple questions, you know where they're going. You're talking to somebody that's there, young couple maybe, or a couple of any age, they have some kids. 3 simple questions. Is protecting your family important to you? Simple question. Can they say no to that question? If they say no to that question, you know what the next question is? When's the divorce final? Okay? The second question is this. Is education to Sean and Glenn important to you? What are they going to say to that question? Of course it is. Third question. In the back of most people's mind is retirement. Probably is in yours. And you're giving them that old turkey nod, you know, turkey head nod. 3 simple questions. Now let me ask 2 more questions. Okay. Did I miss the education one? Third one. The third one is in back of most people's minds, retirement. Probably is you correct. There's just 3. All right. Is protecting your family important to you? Okay. Is education for Sean and Glenn important to you? In the back of everybody's mind is retirement. Probably is for you. Correct? Pretty simple. Now let me go to a couple questions that are pretty simple as well. And these things are things that, as far as I know, I actually did think of. I don't remember seeing these done before. All right. You're out there with a young couple. And you say this question. If something happened to you today, and I could bring you a check tomorrow, that would pay off all of your debts, would pay off the mortgage on your house, pay off any credit card bills, pay off any loans, and put $10,000 to $30,000 in an account for you and the kids, how much would you want that check to be for? Is that a simple question? Okay. What do you think I get for an answer to that question? What would you say? Where are you from? Okay. Where are you? Same? Okay. What do you think I get for an answer to that question? Anybody? 250,000? Okay. Now that would be a correct answer, and that is the answer that we get if you live especially in the Midwest. That's not an unusual answer. 250,000 to 400,000. Do you think that's an answer I'm going to get in LA? Rice, what am I going to get in LA? It's going to get $1 million would be the minimum. I actually did a live one with a guy on a phone call, and it was 10 million. Okay? So it's all in where you live. But let's just, for the sake of the answer, say it was 250,000. The second question is this. After I check that family and pay off all those debts, I'm going to bring your family, your wife and your 2 kids, I'm going to bring another check. And I'm going to bring that check every month for the next 20 years. Because we still have kids to raise, we still have bills to pay, we still have maintenance fees. How much do you want that monthly check to be for? Okay, since we're kind of on the Midwest, well, let's stay in the Midwest. What do you think I get for an answer to that question? 5,000. It's generally going to run, Dennis, in South Dakota, it generally runs about 1,500 to 2,500. In Iowa, it generally runs from 250 to 5,000. Right? He said 5,000. So let's just say 5,000. Okay, $5,000. Does that sound like a lot of money? Times 12 is how much? Huh? 60. Times 20 years is $1.2 million. Okay, so what do we have? Almost $1.5 million. In those 3 questions, or those 2 questions, in less than 5 minutes, you are going to get that kind of an answer every single time. Now, how many people have a lot of clients that have over $1 million of coverage? You know, Roger Zener, how many people remember Roger Zener? Roger Zener, I think it was Roger Zener. It's either him or Sam Curtis that said there's a hell of a lot more people capable of buying $1 million of life insurance than there are agents with the gall to ask them to buy it. Okay? And very few people will sell $1 million policy if they don't own $1 million policy. So again, a very simple way to get at some questions. I remember one time I was talking to a guy. We had done a workshop in our company, Life Investors. I was with had a school called the Tiger School, and a guy came to Tiger School, and he went back home after the Tiger School. Lived in L.A., and he calls me up the following Tuesday, and he said, "John, I got a real problem. I was out last night. I did that deal that you talked about. We come up with the guy had a need of $275,000 of life insurance." And I said, "Yeah." He wouldn't buy. And he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, why wouldn't he buy?" Well, he gave me an objection I'd never heard before. And I said, "What was the objection?" He said that God was going to take care of him. And I said, "Well, duh. I mean, what's tough about that?" He said, "Well, what would have you said?" I said, "Well, I would have said, how you know God didn't send me?" How do you feel about what you do? How do you feel about what you do? All right? And I think it's critically important. I remember hearing a guy by the name of Brian Hetherington, one of the Hetherington. Everybody remember the Hetheringtons? Bruce and Brian. It was actually Bruce. He talked about a person being in the IoT. You guys know what the IoT is? The International Order of Turkeys. You ever go to a cocktail party? There's always somebody from the IoT there. Okay? So, always. I remember one time Bruce said he went to this cocktail party, he walks in, and over in the corner was George. George was the president of the local Canadian chapter of the IoT. And George from across said, "Hey, Bruce, are you still in the life insurance business? Hey, you still in the life insurance business?" And Bruce said before he could say a word, his wife walked up to George and said, "George, please, Bruce and I have talked about this many times, as you know, and we've decided as long as I want to continue to spend $1,000 a month, he's going to stay in the life insurance business." That's how you need to feel about this business. Okay? Now, we've got the need for the life insurance. Let's move on and get a good close for that sale. How many of you use the lottery close? Anybody use the lottery close? Okay. People that have heard me before. Many years ago, I put together this little book of sayings. These are sayings that I've used, and almost, maybe 10% of what's in here is original. Stuff that I picked up at going to meetings like this, because I never went anywhere that I didn't have a pen and a piece of paper. And I'd write that stuff down, and I put some of these in a book several years ago. And there's some pretty good stuff in here. They actually have this book out at the deal. I'll be out there afterwards if anybody's interested. But I'm going to give you the lottery close, since nobody's ever heard of the lottery close. Okay, so you're sitting down with a client, and they've got $100,000. And a person's got $100,000, in a lot of cases they think what? They got a lot of life insurance. So here's the question. If you were to win $100,000 in the Wisconsin lottery, would you quit your job and try to live off the earnings? How many would try to do that? Why? It's not enough. So then you look at the spouse and you say, "Mary, maybe you could help me understand what I think he just said." I think what he just said was, if he won $100,000 in the lottery, he wouldn't quit his job and try to live off the earnings. But for some reason, he seems to think that it's enough for you and the kids to live under. Does that make any sense? It's almost like the drunk driving clothes. Okay, the drunk driving clothes. The guy's sitting in a bar. You're telling this. Let's say you're leaving this meeting tonight. All right? You go out across the highway over here on the market, and just as you're almost across, some drunk comes down the road and T-bones you. And you become that hood ornament on the Mack truck. If you could come back for 30 seconds, what would you tell your spouse you ought to sue for? What do you think they're going to say? $1 million. They never say less than $1 million. Of all the times I've ever asked that question, only once has it been less than $1 million. And I say, well, Mary, maybe you can help me understand what I think he just said. What I think he just said is if he could come back for 30 seconds, he would tell you to sue for $1 million. But yet he's sitting right here, and he's got $100,000 of insurance. Do you think that's enough? No. Now, as an agent, you want to make sure you're far enough away that you're not going to get punched. Okay. You know, term insurance, I was talking about term insurance a little while ago, and I'm a big believer in term insurance. But I used to always tell my term clients this. I'd always say, because I never forget this, and that's term insurance is a little bit like wetting the bed. It gives you temporary relief, but eventually you got to get up and do something about it. Okay? So every year, I'm going to call you up, and we're going to talk about changing the sheets on that bed. Now, do you think they'll ever forget that? No. Now, can all of you do that question? No. Some of it's not your personality. You know, it's very much my personality. All right. How about my favorite was, you know, the old buy term and invest the difference. Anybody ever heard that? Okay. I got 15 on buy term and invest the difference. Some of my favorites. Sell your car. Buy rollerblades and invest the difference. Yeah, how many people come down the interstate on rollerblades? Okay, not very many. Eat ham without eggs and invest the difference. Oh, here's a good one for a lot of you guys. Don't vacation. Join the Army Reserves and invest the difference. Maybe the best. Don't do this in front of your wife. Get rid of the kids. Take in boarders and invest the difference. Okay. So again, there's all kinds of good. Here's one I just turned to. Some people make things happen. Others wait for things to happen. Yet a lot of others say, "What happened?" Okay. So. You know, this business has been really good to an awful lot of people. It's been good to me. It's been good to my family. I love it. I talked a little bit about the fact of when I came into the business. And then after 19 years, I went into the home office. But right before I went to the home office, I was on one of the last appointments I was ever on. It was in Rockford, Illinois. And I'm going to close by sharing a story about that. And I went out on this interview, and I sat down with the guy, and I was there for about 2.5 hours. And I ended up writing a pretty large case, and too big to get a check. But after 4 months of trying to get that thing issued, I finally got it issued. I went over to try to deliver the policy, get the check, and it took me about over 2 hours to get the check. He was giving me every reason in the world on why he wasn't going to give me the check. Things were slowing down in the economy. And I gave everything that I had. I mean, I had my books out, and I was reading through stuff, trying to give him some good answers. Not really. But it took me a long time. But I finally got the check from this guy. And 2 months later, he paid the April payment. He paid the May payment. Early in June, he calls me up. He wanted to fly into Waterloo. I lived in Waterloo, Iowa at the time. He wanted to fly in, and he wanted to discuss his life insurance policy. Now, being an agent like you are, you think I was pretty excited because thinking that, oh, God, he wants to increase it already? You know. My fear, like everybody's fear, is what? He's going to drop that sucker. And it was a pretty big case. It was a large premium, which meant it was a large commission. And like many good agents, the commission was already spent. All right? So if he drops this, I'm in deep doo-doo. So I go out, I meet him out there the next day. I had no idea what was going on. But Arlen comes around the front of the airplane. And Arlen's a little short guy. Pretty heavy. He comes around the front of that plane. He was still short, but he wasn't very heavy. And he was somewhat yellow. Arlen had been to Mayo Clinic in Minneapolis, or in Rochester, and been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and given 6 months to live. He's made 2 payments into that policy. 2 payments into that policy. Arlen lived for 6 months, just a little over 6 months. Arlen wrote me this letter dated July 20th of that year. I want to read it to you. It said, "Dear Mr. Kneeland, this is a letter of appreciation for your perseverance in selling this program to me. When I originally spoke with you about the program, I was less than enthusiastic." That's a fact. "We had been busy recovering from a recession and felt that this expense was not needed at this time. The point was made that I only had 15 years left in my working career, and that if I didn't start a forced program, I would become 65 with no retirement funds. That point weighed heavily on my mind until I said I would do it, no matter what sacrifices were necessary. The insurance portion, I didn't even think of a possibility of ever being used. However, 2.5 months ago, as the song goes, what a difference a day makes. I found that we will have a need for insurance due to incurable cancer. I offer this experience to you and your agents as a testimonial. And if someone such as myself hesitates in buying your product, you are certainly free to use my name and experience. Again, thank you for your insight and your perseverance." He had made 2 payments into that policy when he was diagnosed. Lived for 6 months. I delivered that family a check for $600,000. You think when somebody says to me, "So hey Kneeland, what is it that you do?" that I have any problem saying, "I sell life insurance full-time for commission only. And I'm pretty proud to be doing it. I hope you are as well." God bless. If anybody didn't get one of the sheets that we handed out, or didn't get one of my green pens, feel free to come up and get one. Huh? Thank you very much. Somebody asked about the books. The books can be bought at that little area out there, the marketplace. Okay. This is a different. Hey, Wants to see this letter, just stick around here and I'll show you. This is a great letter as well. This is the letter that you were looking for, not that one. All right? Yeah. Yeah, you can have that. Okay. Who doesn't have a pen yet? Okay. Let me show you this letter. You take this letter here, all right, and just grab one of these letters. You take this letter here, and here's the key to this letter. You take it, and when you give it to the people, I take this letter and I do this, okay? All right, so then I take this letter, because it's a pre-approach letter, right? So then I take this pre-approach letter, and I put it in an envelope, okay? And I always use an envelope any color except for white. And I always use green ink, obviously, or any color except for black. Now you take the letter, this pre-approach letter, and if you're going to put it in an envelope, you got to do what? You got to unfold it, and then you got to fold it back up to put it in the letter, right? So you put it in the letter in here, and then you mail it. All right? You think when they get this letter, this yellow envelope with a bunch of white envelopes, which one are they going to grab first? Okay? And this envelope is going to be a little puffy, right? Okay? And what are they going to be thinking? I hope it's not from the Unabomber. Okay. Who's got a good deep voice? You? Okay, you read the first two. Just read the first two sentences of that. Let me do it. He's a little timid. It says, this letter is pre-crinkled so that it will be at home in the trash. Immediately throw this away, or don't immediately throw this away. Please take your time to read the rest of the letter and then decide if it could be benefit from meeting with me. You think when you call them, they're going to remember this letter? Yeah. Absolutely. And a lot of times they'll just start laughing. All right? You can take this, put it on your own letterhead, on any one letter you want to. Make sure it goes through your compliance. This particular letter has been through Transamerica compliance because I've been using it that long. But this is a great letter. This works. But like anything else, anything will work if you do.